And what I'm presenting to you here are some distillations of my thoughts, some things that we're working on here, and I'd love to sort of get your ideas as well too. This is going to be much broader in scope and a little bit more fuzzy, but I think that's the point of it because the whole challenge is quite fuzzy. So let me go ahead and get started. So I'm here to talk to you about innovation around BOP products and also about making the decision on whether we invest in this or not, because I think that's a central part of the question as well too. As a corporate business, it isn't so obvious actually to invest in BOP interventions. So when we talk about innovating for the BOP, a lot of us are focused on the product. And so that's certainly the case, and what you see immediately visibly is in packaging. So lowering the price of packaging, price by getting smaller packages. We work on technology with creating technologies that allow us to bring products out that are much more affordable, but yet don't sacrifice on quality. For example, in India, we have a product called Wheel that actually serves about a third of the Indian population. It serves, let's see, it's a detergent that's for 35 euro cents is about 1 month's worth of washing, and it turns out to be about 1 million tons of production per year. So that's what I mean about technology driving innovation to really reach down to the poorest. The next is around formats. So getting the right format is really important because getting people to change their habits is really quite hard. And so what we've done is actually intervene where we can in fortifying products that people use every day. And for example, our margarine product, which has multiple essential nutrients and fats. But what I'd like to focus a little bit more on is in this past discussion I think was really important is looking at the entire value chain. Looking at sustainable sourcing, we work with Oxfam to integrate 500,000 shareholder farmers into our supply chain, which is a critical way to keep costs low and to keep quality high. Looking at actually partnering with local manufacturers as well too. So these are 3 local manufacturers that are located in Rwanda, let's see, it's Rwanda and Malawi and Kenya. And it's important because it's a sort of point of accountability as well as keeping costs low as well too, because affordability is really key for innovating for the BOP. The next is in alternative distribution. So going the last mile is really, really difficult, even for us with extensive distribution globally. We've combated that with using Project Shakti, which is basically giving income to rural women and making them direct-to-consumer salespeople. And so that helps us in learning about what we can do to better improve alternative distribution. And the next Kaiser so kindly introduced is the challenge with regulation and law. No matter how good your product is and how much demand there is, if the regulation is not in place, you're not going to get very far. So that's actually where industry collaboration can really come together and put a lot more pressure towards making those changes that are necessary. And then finally, we've got education and aspiration, because we all know from all the discussions today that need does not equal demand. And there must be more creative ways to go out there to educate and create products that are aspirational, create products that are not for the poor, but it's actually, because you want to give this to your child because it's going to make them big and strong and soccer players or football players in the end. So within Unilever, the way that we are guided is with the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. And within our USLP, we have 3 goals. Our first one is to improve the health and well-being of 1 billion people through improving access to hygiene, nutrition, and safe water. Next is to source 100% of our agricultural goods sustainably by 2020 by integrating 500,000 shareholder farmers into our supply chain and have our environmental footprint while still growing our business, which these are all very scary challenges. And you see sort of those frightened faces in meetings every day. But it's really important because when we start thinking about innovating for the BOP, we actually also think about the ROI as well too. So it's important to have ROI. It has to be positive. It has to be positive within a certain short period of time. But you can't think about ROI without thinking about opportunity costs as well too, because there's always going to be something that's going to be less risk and higher return in the end of the day. So actually, instead of focusing on that, really what you really need to look at is vision and leadership. And actually, denim communities, I'm really impressed. Long-term vision is what we need. Actually, looking at what could this do for market development, what could this do for our brand and positioning and portfolio in the long term, and then leadership to absorb all the risks that's involved. And financing, people like to talk about money, but I don't think money is ever a problem. I really believe that if you actually have the right people on board and you put together a program that's really credible, it'll come. But getting that is really hard. And so that's where we really should focus instead on the money. Don't look at the money first, but look at, how is it that we can solve a discrete problem, and looking at strategic partnerships within, our communities and, within the community here today at bringing together a solution. And then finally, I was asked to talk about KPIs and shareholders. Yeah, well, we have to make sure business fundamentals are very strong. But I think what's really important is that as a business, once you've decided to invest in BOP interventions, already you're signaling that you're doing something a little bit different. Because for shareholders, it's about actually increasing, growth and return. So what you need to do is actually think about, well, how are you going to get the right investors invested in your company? And that's about communicating and acting on your values. And that's what the USLP does. It publicly announces what we do. And so those investors that aren't interested don't invest, because they'll know that we are trying to hit these targets and we've publicly committed to them. So I think these are some of the areas that Unilever has looked on in the past, and some of our lessons learned. I think when we talk about ROI and sort of our business decision making, it's really about looking at collaboration and coordination for all the tough areas around regulation and education in particular. I think that a lot of the challenges we think about are really technical in nature, and the really more interesting ones are much more fuzzy. So we need to stay focused on the mission, because along the way, it's going to get really challenging to know what is it that we're trying to do. We start asking ourselves really tough questions like, is this, CSR, or is this business? I'm sure Danon's, faced that for themselves. So this is what I mean by fuzzy. Fuzzy, we don't know exactly where it is. We can't draw boundaries or lines around it. We start asking ourselves, well, what is it that we're willing to give up in order to, meet this goal? As an NGO, perhaps we ask, are we willing to sit next to a corporate, and what does that mean? What is that in terms of our public perception? So I think when we're able to actually sit down and talk about solutions to working through these really tough, fuzzy questions is when we're able to actually move a little bit closer to our mission. And I think that's what we're here to do today. Thank you.